Health and Safety Committee for Monday, September 16th, 2019 to order. The first item on our agenda tonight is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting from 8/19 of 19, copies of which are in the packets. Any corrections or revisions necessary? If not, a motion to approve the minutes would be appropriate. Motion by Peckham, is there a second? Second by Herbst. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. The minutes are approved. Item number 2 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. I'll switch my packet here for a second. And we have, we had a couple, one denial recommended. We had two. One we're going to pull because the applicant contacted the clerk's office today and was seeking some input as far as what he could submit for documents to be re-reviewed. So Bradley Sharkowitz we're going to pull off, and we'll consider his license next month after they've had a chance to look at evidence of rehab on him. So that leaves the only one up for denial tonight then to be Diamond Larkin. Is Diamond Larkin with us this evening? Denied applicants get the right to address the committee to talk about their record. The records show Diamond Larkin is not with us this evening. Also, along with that, we have all of the Class 2 special events. We have the Iron Bowl Red Granite Grinder Bike Race. We have Midnight Martha 5K, the Chase and Chocolate Run Walk, and the Wausau Triathlon. Materials for all of those were in the packets as well. Does anyone have questions about any specific events that they want to discuss? If not, a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff would be appropriate. Motion by Peckham, is there a second? Second by Herbst. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None are opposed. So those licenses are accepted or denied as recommended, including all of the events and the license renewals. With the exception of Brad Sharkowitz, we'll look at him next month. Item number 3 is request for an outdoor band on Saturday, September 21st, 2019 at M&R Station at 818 South 3rd Avenue in their enclosed beer garden. And the petitioner for that is Rick Gordon. Is Rick with us this evening? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
We have, though, allowed outdoor bands over there before. I think they had one last year. And if I recall right, I don't think that we had any issues with that. I think they were good about communicating with their neighbors and whatnot.
Right.
Do we have, and they've been good about working with staff and the PD to do that properly and to stop at the right time and whatnot. Do we have a motion to approve the outdoor band for Saturday night?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Herbst. Is there a second? Second by McElhaney. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries as well. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding a rental inspection program, including inspection district and rental registration. And this item is something that Bill Hebert's been working on for a long time, and Tara. You'll recall a number of years ago, Wausau implemented rental unit licensing, whereby a rental unit had to be inspected and things that were wrong in the rental unit needed to be fixed before it could be rented. And that plan was having, I would say, a good measured amount of success in identifying interior issues in rental properties that were going undiscovered, but for complaints from tenants when they were courageous enough to make them. Shortly after that plan was approved and existed in a number of Wisconsin cities, a number of landlords decided to spend their time and effort and resources suing the municipalities, or a couple of them that had rental license ordinances, and lobbying down in Madison to have the law changed to cause rental licensing as it was written back then to not be compliant with state statutes. So given that change, we suspended enforcement on our rental license ordinance, but we then Bill set to work on taking a look with Tara at what measure of rental inspection complies with the law, gets the rental unit inspection to where it needs to be, and yet is compliant with that statute. So in your packets, you have a body of work that Bill has submitted. There's some maps for a proposed district for where this activity would be conducted. And we'll have him come up and walk us through a little bit of, where he sees this plan going. Hi.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. I had a short staff memo in the packet, and then Tara had some of her comments in there, but when you get down to it, the actual maps kind of lay out why we chose the area we did. And through our research, we found that City of Wausau can create a neighborhood stabilization and enhancement district, and it can be moved throughout the time of the ordinance. It doesn't have to always stay here, but we tried to find an area in Wausau that wasn't part of the initial phase of rental inspection or rental licensing. But we wanted an area that had a high density of rental units in comparison to the city, and also the age of the housing. So on some of these, on this initial map, it's just, my copy's black and white, but yours hopefully is colored. It just shows the boundary. It's basically between north of Bridge Street and south of East Wausau Avenue, pretty much just the area south of Athletic Park. And so the colored parcels are parcels that are rentals, and the number indicates the number of units there. So in this district, we got 75% rentals. Citywide, according to the census, is about 42%, so almost double what we are citywide. And the next page is just some data that we used for age of housing in the area. Wausau, the average house is 65 years old. This area is 110 years old. So there's a propensity that, we're going to be missing smoke detectors or have other code violations in the area, or out-of-date stuff. The third map we provided is just code violations that were found throughout the city from 2016 on.
And now, when I look at that map, because it kind of looks like, almost like a thermal image where you can see where the density is the greatest, where we see that in Easttown, is that violation density greater there because that area was subject to that first round of licensing inspections where more things got discovered?
Yeah, it could be.
Likely.
And if you look so when you follow up on that last page, this is where we inspected. The last map we have in here is where we
Okay.
inspected over the year and a half period. And, but yeah, the Longfellow, the East Town, those neighborhoods, even on the west side where you got Westies and Worley Park, those neighborhood districts is where we more or less inspected in 2014 through 2016.
Right, on the cyclical inspections where you were going kind of through zone by zone?
Correct.
And we didn't get far enough north to finish that athletic park area before we suspended enforcement, right? Okay. Okay. I guess talk a little bit to the committee about what measure of success you saw with inspecting the interior of rentals when you were doing it, as far as the stuff that got discovered and, just the sheer volume of things that wouldn't have been found just with a drive-by on the outside.
We tried to limit our purview to just life safety stuff, and so we, missing handrails, missing smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, primarily those items that weren't required when the house was built, perhaps. Handrails have changed over time. They've gotten higher, they've gotten stronger. Life safety systems like smoke alarms and carbon monoxide have come along in the last 20 years, strongly in the last 20 years. So some of those areas were defunct. There was some plumbing that maybe wasn't done by a licensed plumber. We found a lot of that. So it was a good exercise of the city to try to get in and check out some of this housing stock that maybe folks weren't as prone to give us a call if there was a problem.
That was, when we implemented rental licensing the first time around, our goal was that anybody that rents a unit in town, regardless of where it's priced in terms of rent, should at least be able to have a decent, safe, sanitary place to live where, they did not have to worry about, whether the electrical was sparking or whether the toilet flushed properly or whether their door locks or whether there's a screen on a window or whether there's detectors in place. And, that was really, it was not our goal to throw down big government on landlords, although that was often the assertion. I think that many of the things that we've even heard through our hearings for rent abatement, some of those interior issues, when you look at the outside of those houses, you wouldn't know that they were decaying from within. There was some pretty ugly stuff inside that, if you slap vinyl siding on one of those houses and you drive by on the street, at the street level, they look okay. And on the inside, they're anything but okay. And so I think that's where we were trying to go with rental licensing. And so we've seen, now a number of years of where we've made limited or no progress on the interior inspections because we couldn't, but for when the tenant makes a complaint and invites the inspector inside. And, they have to be quite a measure of brave to do that because a lot of them are afraid of their landlord. So something like this, if you could make an impact in a targeted zone like this, and then once that impact starts to cycle through, designate another area, move the zone, make an impact in that zone, and change that stock for the positive, it seems like a really sensible approach. What are your thoughts, committee? Mr. Peckham, go ahead.
Thank you. Along the lines of what she was just saying, I do have some other things, but she mentioned focusing on the area that you have identified right now. If you're going to expand that or move to a different area, would you keep that area under that designation? Or would you drop that designation and move it over here? I mean, how would you?
We would, there's still to be determined in some ways, but I think our goal would be to get through the whole district at least once and then move on. I think part of the new legislation is that every 5 years you go, once it's passed, you can't go back in for 5 years. So unless there was, unless a new tenant came in 2 years down the road and there was another issue and they brought us in.
Okay, and then when you move to a new neighborhood, the move would be based on the history of complaints and problems that you have seen. And if somebody challenged this, you would say, well, this is why we did this. It was this, this, and this.
Correct. That's what we tried to lay out in here, age of housing stock. We looked at the code violations in the area. We considered some of the calls for service for police or fire. Those standards that are kind of identified in the statute would be brought back and determined by staff where the next area will be. I also believe would bring that next district back to this committee for approval.
Okay, yeah, I think that's very sound reasoning. One of the things that I think the landlords, when they got this legislation passed, the state used as an argument against, or the way the legislation read was that the landlords could no longer be required to assist a city office or agency in performing these inspections. So that means under this new program, you're going to have to mail a letter to them, and how much more difficult is it going to be to do it without the landlord's cooperation and participation?
Well, I mean, when we had our program previously in 2016, we were still trying to move forward. We did approach the tenants directly. That legislation kind of came about early 2016. We worked with tenants to get in, schedule an inspection. I would still reach out to the owner as well, notify them of when it's their property, when we plan to have an inspection. They're welcome to be present. In fact, one of the ideas that we thought of is just do a mass mailing to a block or two area and say, hey, if you got a tenant or you got a vacancy, let's get in there and get it done before you get somebody else in.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had landlord cooperation, volunteer.
Okay. And the earlier version, there were some fees that the city was charging licensing that generated some revenue, and we've got a fraction of that, it seems, with this program. Is there any way to generate some revenue to pay for this?
Well, this program is a little different in the fact that we're going to continue to do our normal day-to-day operation of, running through the city, following up on exterior stuff, commercial or industrial properties that are unkept as well, we'll continue to do that. So the operation won't be, as focused on just this. This will be part of their daily duties, but it won't be the entire thing like it was when we did rental inspection. We had 2.5 people trying to, get through 5,000 inspections in a certain period of time. So this is more going to be another tool for us to use, schedule it out a few weeks ahead of time, but we're going to have plenty of work to do in the meantime.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. I commend your department and the city attorney's office for all this work. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I think it's a sensible approach, too. I think that one of the things when we all were, before there was even rental licensing, a number of us sat on the Housing Code Enforcement Task Force, and we had some pretty spirited discussions about, what really defines blight and, what some of its core causes were and what the core approach and remedy should be. And, one of the first things we did, and it was early in Bill's tenure here, was to take the map, and we mapped out rental unit density. We then looked at the age of the housing stock. Over top of that, we laid the crime map. And, we had, and then we looked at rental density by a percentage compared to owner-occupied units. And there was a shocking correlation where all those things converge. It was easy to tell where urban decay and blight were. And, it was not difficult to tell where to start because there was some commonality on all of those maps. As you laid them together, it wasn't difficult to find a zone that needed some attention. In fact, they had 5 or 6 zones that needed attention. And so, I think it makes sense to take an approach where it's not an entire side of town. It's not an entire, it's not overly large, 5 blocks in each direction roughly. See what kind of positive impact you can make there to turn things around. And then, there's certainly other areas that still need their attention. But if this is the area where they didn't get enough intense inspection done before they suspended operations, it would certainly make sense that you would start in the area where your inspections were the shallowest. So I too applaud this effort. I think that, we can probably see some positive results. I think also with the rollout of this, if the committee and the council were to ultimately approve the plan, we then would take that time also to remind the public, landlords, tenants, what tools exist within the city of Wausau to make properties better. And that's one thing that I started a conversation with Tammy Stratz about last week was we have all kinds of tools. We have commercial rehab loans, we've got Live It Up, we've got, we've got some low interest financing options. Many landlords have used those tools before. And so, it's not that we would just roll this out as an enforcement arm with no way for people to get compliant. And, it's not like someone has to, run out and take out a huge mortgage to bring a property up to code in its entirety. We have some tools that can help them do those things. And they're often not widely recognized or not, people don't know enough about them or how they work. And that's certainly something that these folks could access if they are in an area where a house needs attention. And, maybe through a combination of conventional financing tools and stuff that we have here, you could make that impact, on a little larger scale. Pat?
Yeah, do you have any sense, Bill, on how long it would be for you to work through this district and start another one? Are you thinking like a year per district and keep moving?
Roughly around a year, I would think. And looking at how much we did in previous years, that was with, 2.5 inspectors, but I think if we get the cooperation, we can get through it in probably about a year.
And you would integrate it into their normal workflow so that we wouldn't have to hire to do it?
No.
Okay. Any other thoughts, committee, or questions for Bill? Okay. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Tammy, do you have any thoughts on it from the community development side of things, since you manage all of those tools that, that people may want to help out with something like this?
All I can really say is our departments work very well together, and all the inspectors are very familiar with our program. So not just for landlords, but even homeowners, anybody who has any orders. And if someone says they can't afford it, they're given our department's name and number, say, talk to them, and then we reach out to them. And same with, on our side, if we have an applicant just applying for a rehab loan, whether it's a homeowner, commercial, landlord, we reach out to the inspections department to see if there's any orders on there, so that we make sure that not only do we write up what we think, if there's some orders from the inspections department, we piggyback, so we make sure that everything gets taken care of. So all I can say is I really appreciate them, because we do talk to each other a lot, and I think together we can make these programs work.
Excellent. Does anybody have questions for Tammy? What are your thoughts, committee? I do need a motion. If you would like to approve it and send it forward to council for their final action, I would appreciate that.
Would the Assistant City Attorney have anything to add, that we would be more enlightened on this?
You have a few hours put in on
No,
it, so.
only if you're going to pass a motion, you need to pass a motion for both the proposed ordinance, which will also not only include the residential rental inspection program, but it also
Repeal.
modifies our contact registration, which would require landlords to provide the city with the name of a contact person. We have an ordinance, but it's out of date now with the changes to state law, so we're going to do that as well, reaffirm and modify our rental contact registry, and then this for the rental licensing, and then also our resolution designating that district. So you have three things.
So you need 3 motions or one
Well-
motion?
Well, we have
It's-
two
it's-
action items that should take us through all of it, right?
Right.
So if we take a motion on this first one, which sets up the program, and then the second one picks the zone, right? And so that then should get them where they need to be. One thing I will say about the registration information that we were able to secure through the first go-round of that process is it was very difficult to resolve an inspection-related issue with an out-of-town landlord. And, it's really hard to serve process on somebody when they reside in Florida and the rental unit that's decaying is up here. And so having them designate one person as a point of contact, where somebody can just contact them to get something taken care of before it's, a crazy issue that's way out of hand, was just super helpful, I think, to the department in, providing notice just to get the ball rolling on some of these fixes, where before, with absentee landlords, you couldn't find anyone to work with. So I think refreshing that also is a sound effort. Okay, so the first item is consider ordinance repealing and recreating rental contract registration, repealing section 16.04.039 residential rental licensing, and creating section 16.04.030 residential rental inspection. Do we have a motion to approve that, which would create the program? Motion by Peckham,
make
is there a
this.
second?
I'll second it.
Second by Herbst. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. So then the second action is consider resolution designating a City of Wausau Neighborhood Stabilization and Enhancement District for the purposes of residential rental inspection program. And this one would approve the map that Bill submitted. Do we have a motion on that? Motion by Peckham, is there a second? Second by McElhaney. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. So both of those actions pass. With this item on the agenda tonight, I also had forwarded the information and reached out to Gary Gisselman for some feedback from within his district or within his neighborhood group, because this zone is in his area. I've not heard back from him, but I imagine between now and the council meeting where we take this matter up, he'll have some time to work with his folks and bring us some feedback from the district if there is any. So with that, we'll send that to council and see where it goes. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on an ordinance repealing Title 18 electrical and recreating Title 18 electrical standards. And you've got that in your packets. Also something that Tara's been working quite a bit on. And let me switch my packet here. There we go. And we've got, you've got the narrative memo in there from Bill on the new electrical code. Any questions for him on that item? That just kind of pretty much brings us up to today's standards, which looks like it needed to happen, just some cleanup work on this stuff. So do we have a motion to approve? Motion by McElhaney, is there a second? Second by Peckham. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that item passes as well. Item number 6 is operations report from the fire department for July and August of 2019. Those reports are in the packets. Do you have anything that you want to, do you have questions for the chief on any of the items that are on the report? Anything of note that you wanted to talk about, chief? Nope. Okay, that makes it easy. So then we'll place the fire
Thanks.
department's report on file. Our next item is tavern activities, compliance checks, and law enforcement activities, also in the packets. Any items of concern on the report that you want to talk about, chief?
Yes, I have one. First,
Okay.
I promised last month that I would update you on our meeting with Tim Naraki from Rock's Place.
Yes.
So Mike Felder met with him and his manager, and then separately I met with Tim and his manager regarding some of the incidents that we've had there. So Mike talked about how we can help them be successful. He talked to them about, giving them training on the IDs, de-escalation of situations, all of the normal things that we offer to the taverns. And then when I met with them, I talked to them about those things as well. I took a stance of it's their responsibility as a tavern owner to make sure that it's safe for their clientele. And if it's not safe for their clientele, then that's when we'll get involved in helping them make that safe. So some of the things we talked about were video cameras. He's been promising for quite some time to get cameras there. He actually had some cameras for a period of time that didn't record. They were just like live monitored, which didn't do a whole lot for us. So actually, the day of the meeting, they indicated they had planned to have all new system installed by the end of the weekend, and that was already in the works. So Mike Felder's going to follow up on that to make sure that has occurred. They started to ban a lot of the what they deemed troublemakers. They have a list of individuals with photos so that if somebody comes into their establishment and they're banned, that the staff would know it and be able to remove them from the premises. They've kind of changed their entry and exit procedures and what doors people come in and out. So that it's easier for the staff to monitor who's there, who's coming and going. They have a bouncer. I asked them if the bouncer ever patrols the parking lot, because that's oftentimes where their issues are, out in the parking lot, which they agreed that they would have the bouncer begin to patrol in the parking lot. And then, of course, we talked about being very proactive with calling law enforcement when necessary. So, we set the expectations, and hopefully they're going to abide by those expectations and implement some of these things to try and remedy some of the issues that they're having there. So I guess time will tell, but we have had a couple meetings with them now to try and head off some of the more significant issues that we've had there.
Oh, good. And they've been cooperative and willing to change in the past, so that's hopefully going to be the culture again, hopefully. I mean, before they had requested additional patrols and things when other establishments in the area were adding to the problems down there, so
Right.
hopefully that works. The only question I had as I read the report is I see that we had quite a problem in the last month with open containers downtown.
Right.
And I see we had one at Jalapenos, but I left to wonder what in the world happened over at Malarkey's, because that's a long list there.
Right.
And I know that he's had signage up in there telling people at the door not to go outside with their containers.
Yeah.
I think there's a sign hanging there that says you can be cited if you go outside, but I guess that's just not,
I think it's
that's a
not,
lot.
I think it's not typical of them. They have been pretty proactive.
Yeah.
I see that, based on Mike's recommendations, they would have 150 demerit points issued. 3 of those incidents, if you look at it, happened within just a few hours of each other.
Right.
Near bar close time. Another 2 of those incidents occurred on the same night. So I don't know if that's a new staff problem that, that had a lot of those issues, but, certainly it's your prerogative if you want to have Tyler come in because he's met the 150, or, perhaps in the alternative, because he has been pretty proactive in the past, I could meet with him and try to identify what that issue is and why they had so many issues this last month.
Well, in the interest of treating them all the same, when they get to 100, we ask them all to come and talk to the committee. And, we've had Tyler in before, and he's always been willing to work with us and work with the PD, but I think that, given the fact that many points have accumulated, it would be good if he come and talk to us.
That's fair.
And so, yeah, I mean, if we'll call it a formal expression of concern, because that's what it is. You don't often get 150 points in a month, but it can happen. And so, that said, I guess I would be looking for some insight from them as to, some type of remedial action that they can take to, get this under control, because that's not what's been happening there, month after month. They've not appeared for a very long time on this
Right.
report in this way. And so, like you say, maybe it's new staff, maybe it's something needs to be controlled at the doors or something, but I'd like to hear that from Tyler if we could get him to come in.
You bet.
Okay? Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree on, you hit 150, I think you are invited to have a conversation with us. I think that's good. I think a lot of those, a lot of the violations, though, I think they're worthy of the 25 demerit points and all that. I would kind of classify those as eye rollers, where you read about it and you roll your eyes. This thing at the Showtime Gentlemen's Club where the off-duty police officer apparently drove after being directed not to drive was more of an eyebrow raiser. I'm wondering if you could talk to us at all about that, if there was anything more that could have been done, if you are confident that that individual was treated the same way anybody else would have been treated if they were told, it appeared to agree, I'm not going to drive tonight, and then the officer came back and the vehicle was gone.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how we handle that situation. We were proactive, we advised the person, that they shouldn't be driving, and, we went about our day and our night, and the officers have a lot going on, so they didn't stay and babysit the officer, the person involved. They trusted that person to make a good decision. We don't know that person drove. We assume that person drove because when we got back, the vehicle was gone. So yes, if the inference is that we let this person drive because they're a police officer, I would adamantly deny that and say that, no, absolutely not. That's not what happened.
Well, I would also echo what Ben said. I mean, just from what I read, there's no proof that he drove. You don't know whether someone came and picked him up or another patron drove or somebody from the hotel. Maybe they did drive, maybe that's the inference, but you can't prove it.
Okay. Any other questions on the report or anything we need to discuss? And the other thing I would mention, I guess, within the downtown area is if we find through our discussion with the owners down there, if there is, there always has been confusion regarding, I don't know, I guess allegedly there's confusion as far as where you can and can't go with alcohol downtown. But I think we've been consistent and level in setting our rules now for a number of years, that there shouldn't be any confusion anymore. The 400 block isn't new. The event rules aren't new. The boundaries of the 400 block aren't new. The definition of the right-of-way once you get outside the bar has never been new. And so, if they're posting signage, I wonder if within the consuming public, there may be a misunderstanding about where you can go with your drinks, but I think other than for the owners to try and communicate that the way they have with signage, or whether they have people posted at the door or whatever, there's not really a good way to get that word out any other way, other than the establishments that are serving. But, it's, and you don't know if these people are visiting, maybe they're from areas where different things get tolerated, but, the fact that it happened on a fairly condensed period of time, was it a group that was all together? Sometimes somebody sees one person go out, they think they can go too. I don't know what happened there, but I'm anxious to hear from the owners what happened, because we'll be looking for some improvement. So, Anything else on the report that we need to discuss? If not, then we'll place that report on file, and we'll then look to confer with the owners at Malarkey's next month. Item 8 is communications. I have none. Does anyone else have any? If not, then a motion to adjourn would be appropriate. Motion by Peckham, is there a second? Second by Herbst. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No one ever wants to stay. We'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.